Welcome! In this module, you will learn how to compose an effective thesis statement and integrate it into the body of your paper. This is a skill you will need to use throughout your academic career. Being able to write effective thesis statements means you're able to synthesize your ideas and create effective arguments on an issue or topic. Making effective arguments also allows you to evaluate other scholars' arguments in a critical manner and present ideas and questions that fill a gap in your field. You can see then how knowing how to craft an effective thesis statement helps you enter the scholarly conversation. Upon completion of this session, students will be able to define the components of an effective thesis statement, compose a thesis statement answering the questions why and how in relation to the paper topic, and understand the ways in which a thesis statement can be integrated into the body of a paper. So what is a thesis statement? It's the sentence or sentences which give the main argument of the paper and include the reasoning behind the argument through phrases which address the questions, why is this important, and or how is this accomplished? It can often include an opinion or judgment that you've made about a reading or personal experience. Think of it as your steering wheel, helping to guide the flow of ideas within the paper. It is usually placed at the end of your introductory paragraph to allow a reader to know what to expect in the paper. And remember, it can be more than one sentence if needed. Before composing a thesis statement, it's important to understand the two components that comprise a thesis statement, the main argument and the importance qualifier. The main argument is a sentence or clause which states what the argument of the paper is and serves to show what will be addressed in the body of the paper. The importance qualifier is the clause or sentence which indicates the reasoning behind the argument and tells the reader why the argument is important and or how the argument was developed. This can also be seen as proof or supporting evidence for your argument. Presenting a counter-argument within your thesis statement is another way of adding an importance qualifier and is a method you can use to set up your argument within the scholarly conversation. Please note that these two components do not have to be written in the order described above. Let's look at the example thesis statement we'll be using throughout the remainder of this tutorial. The text being analyzed is Daisy Miller, a study by Henry James. The thesis statement reads, although many readers see Daisy Miller as a selfish upstart and the more Europeanized Winterbourne as a noble character, through subtle use of choice of names, dialogue, and even description of Winterbourne's mental processes, James reveals Daisy, a model of the new American woman, as the upstanding character of the study. Here we have the main argument highlighted in pink, the importance qualifiers showing how the argument was developed highlighted in aqua, and the counter-argument highlighted in green. How did the writer arrive at this thesis statement? There are two good methods for composing thesis statements, building forward or building backward. With building forward, you already have your main argument. You state it, then think about points which will support it and form those into a clause or sentence to be your importance qualifier. Together with the main argument, this makes a thesis statement. With building backward, you know the points you want to cover and may even have written a draft, but you don't have an argument. In this case, you analyze the main points and look for the arguments behind them, including the reasoning and methods. Synthesize these arguments into your thesis statement. Remember that your thesis statement can change as you work on the paper, which is why we call it a working thesis statement until you're ready to make your final edits. Once you know the components mentioned above and these two methods of crafting a thesis statement, you should be able to make an effective thesis statement for any type of paper. Let's look at method 1, building forward. The writer wants to argue that Daisy is a positive protagonist and a model of a more independent 19th century woman. Her first step is to form this main argument into a sentence highlighted here in pink. In the next step, she thinks about how Daisy is portrayed as a positive protagonist and lists the methods shown here. In step 3, she combines the points from step 2 into a clause that becomes her importance qualifier shown here in aqua. In step 4, the writer chose to introduce her argument with the counter-argument shown here in green. Finally, she combined all these phrases into a statement using introductory and connecting words and proper punctuation, highlighted in yellow, to make a complete sentence. However, say the writer has composed a draft which contains several argumentative points and points of analysis, but she can't figure out how they fit together into an overarching argument. She can use method 2, building backward. Her first step would be to examine the main points listed here. Her next step would be to highlight similarities among her argumentative points and her points of analysis. The argumentative points are in yellow, and the points of analysis, or the tools through which she makes her analysis, are in red. She will then think about what she wants to say on the topic and put together her argumentative points. In summary, Her points say that Daisy is an independent and realistic character who grows and is also moral and kind. The writer then turns her summary into a main argument statement, shown in pink. Next, the writer condenses her points of analysis into a clause which becomes her importance qualifier. At this point, the writer would make sure to include verbs to indicate how the points of analysis are used. Next, the writer would combine her two statements, making sure to use connecting words and punctuation, highlighted here in yellow. This results in the sentence you see at the bottom of the slide. Finally, the writer chooses to introduce a counter-argument and integrate it into the thesis statement, resulting in the now familiar sentence we have below. You've now created an effective thesis statement, but you're still not done. You need to make sure that you integrate it into the body of your paper so that readers will always remember your argument. 4 good methods for integration are to use keywords from your statement strategically in your body paragraphs, and you may use synonyms for the keywords. Provide explanatory sentences that relate to your argument. Build your argument in the order in which it is laid out in your thesis statement, and refer to your thesis in your analysis of your quotations. Let's look at some examples. The first sentence uses words or synonyms of words found in the thesis statement to make its argument. The words are highlighted in yellow. The sentences in green explain arguments which are outlined in the importance qualifier part of the thesis statement. In example 3, the main points of the paper are listed in the order presented, and the words highlighted in aqua show that this is the same order in which they are presented in the thesis statement. And finally, the pink parts of this passage represent an analysis of the quotation, which also refers to the argument made in the thesis statement. And there you have it, the steps needed to craft and integrate a thesis statement. For more guidance, check out these resources listed here and make sure to visit the Writing Center. You can view the full essay from which we took the example thesis statement as an attachment in the online module. Happy writing!